unfortunately, stories that I've only shared with one or two people within my inner circle ends up front page of newspaper or any page. Your circle of friends starts to.
Recording in progress.
I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Retirement. Today is Wednesday, June 7th, and the time is 9 a.m. The first item on the agenda is, let's go through all the walkthrough and then we'll do the pledge.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Kehoe. This meeting is being held virtually and in person, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Ms. Greenwood will not be joining us today. Mr. Knox?
Good morning, I'm here.
Ms. Gray? Mr. Santos?
Morning.
Mr. Sanchez? Mr. Sanchez will be late today. Trustee Oakham?
Morning.
Mr. Robbins?
Present.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Green will be joining us shortly as well. Mr. Bernstein?
I'm here.
And Chair Kehoe.
I'm present.
Staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, Assistant Executive Officers JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, CIO John Grable, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, Senior Staff Counsel Frank Voigt and Fern Billingy, Legislative Affairs Officer Barry Liu. Staff and managers participating today include Kathy Delino, Sami Wong, Ted Granger, Cassandra Smith, Louis Gittins, Vincent Lim, Ricky Contreras, Tamara Caldwell, Vicky Neely, Carrie Wilson, Hernan Barrientos, and Ricardo Salinas. LACERA's medical advisor, Dr. Glenn Arisman, and Fiduciary Counsel Robert Klausner. Trustees, please use the raise your hand Zoom option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you're ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Thank you. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Gray, would you please lead us?
Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I feel like I have to give a disclaimer that my voice, I don't have a cold. I just have congestion. So don't cower in fear from me. I don't have COVID or anything that I can give you that I know of. Yes. Okay, so moving along to item 3, which is our online attendance. I don't believe we have any requests.
We have not received any requests for just cause or emergency.
Perfect. So we will go ahead and move on to the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of May 3rd of 23. I'll need a motion for that. Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Okay, Ms. Gray, how would you like to cast your vote?
I thought I did it. Let's see. Wait a minute. Then,
Okay, great. The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Motion passes. That brings us now to our public comment period. Have we received any?
We have not received any requests from the public to speak.
Okay, and I don't see anybody in the audience raising their hands, so we will go ahead and move along to our executive update. First with our LACERA All-Stars.
Thank you very much, Chair Kehoe. Good morning, trustees. Please join me in taking a moment to recognize those staff members who have gone above and beyond the call of duty. And helped out their fellow staff members and our members. And so if they're out there virtually, let's recognize Alex Ochoa, Roy Mercado, Valerie Potasic, Arturo Guzman, and Maria Montulak. So thank you very much. Maria is our web watcher. If you'll permit me, there is one other individual who was an all-star but didn't wind up being selected as one of our winners. And that is Aurelia Oakfor Smith. And I wanted to recognize her today for some exceptional service that she provided to one of our members. She's part of our member care unit. It's a small unit in member services that handles our escalated calls and the longer term cases that members need to help. And they also make outbound calls when we're trying to reach members, for example, to validate them if we've lost contact with them to restore their benefit stream of payments. And she spent 3 hours with a out-of-country member, went past her shift. This member had some health struggles that made it very difficult for them to trust people. And so she spent 3 hours gaining this member's trust so that she can restore benefit payments to her. And I wanted to recognize her. And that's the type of individual that we have throughout LACERA who really take time to care for our members. She could have at any point after, spending a bit of time with her, called this a lost cause. And there are other things that we can do to try and, validate her. But she took that time to gain her trust and, get her to give us the information we needed to make sure we were speaking to the right person and then get her benefits going again. So I just wanted to recognize her. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. That compassion is a very important element of our employees here at LACERA. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Then that brings us to our member spotlight.
Yes. So this is the point where we recognize our members and we select somebody so that we can recognize the service that they provide to the county and the constituents, and to remind us of why we're here. And so this month we're recognizing Marina Now Garcia, who worked for the Children's Services, who is a Children's Services Administrator 1 in the Department of Children and Family Services. She is retiring after 31 years of service. So that's an incredible amount of time that she spent helping the family. She's also a volunteer for a number of organizations throughout the county. She's looking forward to learning a little bit more about her Asian heritage and enthusiastic about spending some time cooking and enjoying some travel time. So thank you very much for Marina Now Garcia for her service to the county.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We love the member spotlight. Moving on to our CEO's report.
Yes, Chair Kehoe, trustees, good morning. Very, very brief CEO report.
Well, the written version was not.
That's correct. I'll try to distill it very, very quickly for you. I did want to point out that the elections are for the trustee positions are underway. The nomination period ends on June 20th of 2023. And so those individuals looking to run need to submit their paperwork into the registrar recorder's office by that time. We, of course, have been providing additional notifications to our members, letting them know about the election and what those important deadlines are. And so we look forward to great participation in this upcoming election. Did want to point out that we did, after the JOGC meeting, there was a request for us to reach out to our document processing center staff. We did have a meeting with them. We requested our consultant to update some of the payment information or the salary information that needed to be refreshed. And so they're in the process of doing that. We've also are going to do a field trip, quite frankly, to the assessor's office to take a look at their document processing center, because I believe that it has a lot of similarities that we can draw from in terms of what the expectations are, the type of training that's required for both, and what type of work is being conducted, so that we can make some comparisons, and then we'll come back to the board with some recommendations moving forward. So, and I do want to commend the document processing folks. They were very well prepared. The meeting that we had, they were incredibly passionate about their work. They do a lot of very, very good work on behalf of our members, making sure that the workflows, quite frankly, get kicked off from document processing center and goes to the various areas of the organization. And so they provide a very critical component in terms of the workflows. And so I did want to give them a shout out, that I appreciated everything that they had to say. In terms of recruitment updates, we did make an offer to an individual as the Chief Information Technology Officer. That individual did accept the offer. And so they're going through their background check, I believe, is the final component. And then once that's done, we'll be providing a notification to staff and to yourselves as well in terms of the selection. In terms of the Information Security Officer position, I believe the last time we spoke, I mentioned that we've made several offers to a few candidates. Those candidates, a couple of them accepted, and then they declined the offer after we provided them the opportunity. And so we're in the process of going out and recruiting for these particular positions again, to get a broader candidate pool than what we had before. And so we've spoken to our recruiter about that, and they're busy out trying to figure out where they can increase the number of candidates for us so that we can re-interview some individuals
I have
for
Mr.
that position.
Sanchez with a question on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Were you able to, or your staff able to ascertain the reasons why they turned the position down after they were accepted?
Yeah, it had to do with opportunities that they had subsequent to our offers. So I'm not sure if we were used as a pace horse, so to speak, in terms of them negotiating their other employment opportunities. But I think it does center around salary. For that particular position, it's a very, very difficult position to fill. I do want to let you know, and at the OOC meeting, I think, maybe Mr. Lugo can bring you up to speed of what we've had to do, because we've also lost individuals in our internal information security office as well. And so we've actually had almost 100% turnover since the last time we've spoken. And so we've interviewed individuals for temporary positions to fill those gaps right now. So, Mr. Lugo, is there anything that I'm sorry, through the chair, if
Yes.
Mr. Lugo can make a
Yes,
comment.
please.
Yeah, Chair. Good morning, Chair Kehoe. Good morning, board members. So first, in terms of the Information Security Officer recruitment, I think Mr. Crime is correct in terms of our offers were not accepted. But one of the other issues, and we've talked about this in terms of our coordination with the county, was when that position was allocated to LACERA, they removed the Chief Information Security Officer title. So that's also a barrier in terms of our recruitment, because it is a high level recruitment for LACERA in terms of those individuals looking for information security roles. That chief job title is an important factor. So that has been a barrier, but we do.
Career
have-
ladder, is that what we're talking about? Career ladder?
We're talking about, so this is the first permanent information security officer position LACERA has, which is our information security officer. When we went to the county to get our positions classified and ordinanced, they removed the chief out of that job title, which makes it difficult in terms of when you're recruiting for that lead position. But with that said, we do have a meeting next week to review about 8 to 10 qualified candidates. So we're confident that we're going to be able to onboard an information security officer that's well qualified. And in terms of our turnover within the information security team, I was going to provide an update to the Operations Oversight Committee. But we do have 2 individuals that we onboarded a couple of weeks ago and another 3 individuals that we're onboarding in the next couple of weeks that are highly credentialed, highly qualified staff. The foundation that's been built in terms of our information security program is kind of a plug and play. So we feel confident that we're not, in any risk as it relates to our information security posture. And then lastly, we do have Sami Vong, and he'll introduce himself during the UK meeting, serving as a transitional lead for that particular team. So I don't want to leave the board thinking that we're in any jeopardy in terms of our information security posture. We still feel confident that we have the right people in the right places, and we'll get this information security officer filled.
Mr. Chair. So 2 points. One is because the Board of Supervisors rejected that position, we should talk to our lawyers to see whether or not that should be could be included in the current litigation that we have with the county. Or certainly we need to retain those records because that's evidence that the failure to don the administrative the duties has placed us in a very difficult position. That's one point. The other point is that we need to review our own internal salaries to make sure that we are competitive. There's something that I've been saying for years now. We need to make sure that we pay our employees a competitive wage. Other than that, we're going to lose them and we're not going to be able to hire them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I concur with everything with what Herman just said. And the title is important too. So I don't know where that decision was on removing the chief element of, but that has direct impact. I said that when we changed the title from Chief Information Officer to Chief Information Technology Officer, there's a big difference in the IT world on that. I'm glad that we did secure a candidate for that. I'm glad that the candidate got caught up on that title. But I know that impacted us. So I think this should be a learning lesson for us to look at those things, especially at higher senior executive positions. People look at titles. People look at titles. So
yes. Just so our legal team is fully aware of the situation that we're under, and they're evaluating it. So can I continue?
Yeah, please do.
I did want to mention that as a result of the member contribution rate increases, we did meet on May 16th with Local 1014, their leadership, to go over it. And we also met with CCU, made a presentation before their leadership team as well on May 17th. There's a couple of other unions that would like us to make specific presentations to their membership. And so we're in the process of making arrangements to do that as well. And so I want to thank Ted Granger, did a phenomenal job making that presentation, making it understandable, easy to follow. And so I believe that we've managed to answer all of the questions to this point, because we haven't had any calls or anything like that. But July 1st is just around the corner. And
the feedback I got was great.
Great.
It was a great presentation. So.
Perfect. I did want to bring up Jasmine. We do have some legal interns that we have hired. And so I would like Jasmine to come up and introduce them to you all, if that's okay with you, through the chair.
Please.
And I also wanted to say that this program intern program really is something that Jasmine took the lead on. And she was the one that helped with the recruitment and making sure that all of the various projects that they put together and they're working on. So Jasmine is really deserves all of the credit, quite frankly, in terms of getting our 2 interns on board and getting the program off and running. So that, Jasmine.
Thanks, Santos. Good morning, Chair Kehoe. Good morning, trustees. I'm excited about the internship program. It's something that I myself value. I've been a mentor for a decade or more. So it's important to have interns, those that we can teach and expose to the various laws that we have here at LACERA. So I'm really proud of our interns. I have Nara Daradtanian and I have Sebastian Page. They're both completed their first year of law school. Sebastian started on last month on the 15th. And Nara started on the 21st. So I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to them with Chair Kehoe's permission. So they can provide a brief introduction. Nara.
I'll just stand. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Nara Daradtanian. Actually, can you hear me just fine here?
Yep, sure.
Okay, cool. This is a better posture. So yeah, as Jasmine was saying, I started this month. I just finished my first year of law school at Washington University in St. Louis. I'm from Pasadena, so when I saw this job pop up, I was like, okay, I really want this. And so far, it's been a really great experience. Jasmine has been a really great help leading the way. All the attorneys I've worked with have been awesome. My very first memo was with Mr. Rice, so that was a really cool experience, and it really helped me grow as a blossoming soon-to-be attorney in 2 years. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this summer, and it's really great to be here. So thank you.
Sebastian.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jasmine. My name is Sebastian. I also finished my first year of law school at University of Illinois College of Law. I'm from Southern California originally. I graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's in sociology. Had the opportunity to work on a couple projects with a few different people, and I'm also excited for the rest of the summer. So thank you.
Great.
Well done.
Thank you. Welcome. Yeah. This is great. I love it. So let's keep that momentum going forward. So welcome to the team, and you're going to have some great experiences here, I'm sure.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jasmine. With that, be more than happy to stand for questions.
Perfect. I'll open up for any questions for the CEO's report.
I have,
Mr. Robbins.
yeah, on second thought, I'll wait until we get further down. The compensation earnable, that wasn't in your report. That's still coming up in the agenda, right?
Yep, that's a consent item. I'll go ahead and pull that from consent when we discuss it.
Because I have some questions about that I want to bring up. So
perfect. That's after the disability
okay.
consent calendar, and then I'll pull it so you can be prepared.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no further questions for the CEO, we'll go ahead and move on to item 7, which is our disability retirement applications on consent calendar. So I'll go ahead and move pages 1 through 3, which is the FCD applications 8E through 43E. None of those were pulled, right? Okay, so 8E through 43E, page 1 through 3. I'll move that.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Passes unanimously.
Passes unanimously. We're moving on to page 4, which is the fire and lifeguards SED application 1621B through 1631B. Motion moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Chair,
Yes.
I just want to confirm that 1630B, Lisa Reinheimer, was pulled from the agenda.
Okay, can we make sure that's reflected in the agenda, in the motion? So it's going to be 1621B through 1629B and 1631B.
Yes.
So let's go and vote, please.
Mr. Santos, how would you like to vote?
You know, I don't like to be going down.
That's a yes.
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Green?
I hate that. Why did we get-
Sorry, I lost it. I'm an aye.
Very good.
There it goes.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees.
Okay, motion passes. We're moving on to page 5 and 6 on the consent calendar for general members, application 2531C through let's do through 2548C. None of those have been pulled.
Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Bernstein, how would you like to record your vote?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Item passes with all those present. Then that brings us to page 6, our NSCD consent calendar, application 4420. I'll need a motion. Moved and seconded. Vote.
Motion passes unanimously by all trustees.
Motion passes unanimously. And that now brings us to our consent items. We're going to, what did I do?
You didn't do anything. I'm just changing, reporting an item.
So we're going to pull item A from the consent calendar, and I will need a motion for, unless anybody else has any items to pull, I'll need a motion for item B through D.
So move.
Moved and seconded. We will vote as soon as it pops up.
And that was Mr. Santos and Mr. Herman.
Who are you gonna pull?
Item A.
Item 1.
Item A.
Passes unanimously.
The consent calendar passes unanimously. That brings us to the coveted Alan Bernstein excluded from consent item, agenda item. And that's item A. So we had pulled compensation, earnable, and pensionable compensation. Mr. Robbins.
Aside from the fact that reading all this stuff gives me a headache, there is an issue that has come up that was brought to my attention a couple of months ago. And I had spoken to Fern about it briefly, and it has to do with probably more safety people than non-safety people, but it's how a service-connected disability pension is going to be calculated under PEPRA versus how it's calculated under anyone that was hired prior to PEPRA. And the difference between anticipated earnings and real earnings. And just to cut to the chase real quick, I got a call from the father of a young deputy sheriff who was a safety plan C guy. And the father was a retired homicide detective. And he was convinced that LACERA had made a mistake on the amount of this kid's service-connected disability pension. He was injured less than a year after graduating from the academy while he was working a custody training block, which is mandatory, got injured severely, had multiple back surgeries, was out for like 2 years, and ended up being disability retired. I mean, he's messed up. He's got rods and cages and everything in his back. And because of the way his pay went from full pay to 48.50 pay, he ran out of 48.50 pay. Then he went to percentage pay. And because under Plan C, it's a 3-year average, he ended up getting a pension that wasn't big enough to go out and make a car payment. And it was like, it shocked me when I heard about it, because I had to make a couple of phone calls and say, is this accurate? But normally, somebody that under the old system, if you retired on a disability pension, if you didn't have enough years to get more, you'd get 50%. And that was basically tax-free for federal tax purposes. Under PEPRA, if you go out really early and you get, and there's nothing, nefarious about anything, depending upon what your actual pay was, we calculated based on what you actually made, not what you should have made or could have made, which is the way it is prior to PEPRA. So I don't know what we do about that, but I think it would probably benefit at least the safety people on the board to get something from staff on that to explain, because I was stunned and shocked at how little this guy's pension was. I mean, it was bad. I mean, he went to a point where he didn't have any money coming in at all. So, and that was all calculated because he didn't have enough years on. And if you look at the CEO report, you'll see that we already have, what about a dozen people disability retired in Safety Plan C. So they're all going to be in that same boat because none of them have enough years on to get much. So depending upon how long they were out and what their pay status was during that time, like this kid, it took like 3 years for him to go through all of his surgeries, and his pay just kept on going like this. I mean, not good. So I just wanted to bring that up because it kind of shocked me. And I know that changing PEPRA is probably about like trying to lift a 10-ton gorilla. So, but it's not going to be very fair to a lot of the young employees that get injured and hurt early in their careers. They're not going to get much.
Yeah, I second that, if I may, Chair, the accrual of benefit time too is an issue, because under the county code, they can use that partial pay to supplement, and without the absence of that, it becomes very problematic.
Chair Keogh, if I might.
Yes, please.
I don't know if these comments relate directly to this item. The subject, though, of education for the board to provide an opportunity for some education, also from some discussion of this sort of issue, is something that Mr. Kreimer and I have discussed and that we'll be arranging in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you. I have some comments, but Mr. Santos, you're in the.
I would just gonna suggest, Mr. Rice, that in addition to the education piece, that we should talk to the legislature to see if we're making some changes there.
Yes.
Thank you.
I had out there in training earlier this year. I don't know how many, but a bunch got hit. You remember? I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, that's a very unique scenario, but yes.
Are they? Do you know how those deputies are? I mean,
I believe that the sheriff did swear them all in. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe that was the thing. But generally speaking, academy recruits are non-safety members and are temporary employees and don't have. Yeah, it's been new because before that happened, people would get injured in the academy and maybe not. They may have been having some other issues with the academy. They get injured and then they were getting disability retirement. So they kept them as temporary employees. But I think in this case, the sheriff did swear them in.
Okay.
So my thoughts on this is that thank you, Mr. Roberts, for bringing this up, because I didn't connect those dots until you just mentioned that. But these are the unintended consequences of really the interpretation of the law, which we go by. I agree with the way that we at LACERA interpret the law, but I think that those are elements that need to be fine-tuned, because there's so many. What really happened is all of the pay elements that a normal employee is getting is not considered pensionable under PEPRA, because it's not provided to everyone in the same class, which is really silly because everybody will eventually get it. It's just that it's a very highly technical thing that I don't want to get into right now, but it's a very technical interpretation that needs to be fine-tuned. And I don't know if it's appropriate for this board or more so for the union side, but I do think an educational piece for us, which could then be passed along to the labor groups, is important to look at. So I appreciate that you're already talking about that. I would consider this without objection, direction from the board to come back to us with information. And I do think it ties directly into this pension, this compensation, earnable and pensionable compensation component, because that's really the cost. That's the reason why. Intermediate post certificates, advanced post certificates, management post certificates are not pensionable under PEPRA. Those are significant elements of salaries. So, and if somebody retires earlier, we've been talking within the labor circles, we've been talking for years on how people need to be putting defined contribution money away to offset this reduction that they're going to get. But you can't do that if your career is cut short with something like this, some tragedy early in your career. So definitely need to look into it. So I appreciate the comments, Mr. Robbins, from everybody else on the board. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just Mr. Santos, that I can add a point of information. California Professional Firefighters Legislative Conference from 22. It was resolved to make every effort to pursue modification of PEPRA because of the thing. So there's some information in that. I would ask an add on the information piece regarding nomenclature. Because there's a lot in the name, and also expand upon required job duties. Because I know under PEPRA, if it's required by the job, it can be considered pensionable. So I would ask that, information be included on that. One nomenclature versus another, as in bonus or, for those one-time ad hoc differentials that are attached to one's pay, specifically to PEPRA versus, anyway, that would be my ask also in the information piece to really delve into that type of stuff.
Yep.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions on this item that's pulled. We will definitely need to make a motion on the item, though, that's in front of us, or Ms. Billingsley will not be happy with us.
I need a motion.
If I can get a motion.
Oh,
Okay. I'll second. Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Mr. Santos, how would you like to record your vote?
Going down the road.
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Happy.
Oh, you put it in. Very good. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. Motion passes. And we're moving on to our non-consent items. Item A, which is our LACERA budget policy. And that was discussed by the JOGC as well as some open meetings. But let's go ahead and does staff want to do a presentation? Well, I'll ask the board. Does the board want a presentation from staff, or do we want to move this item forward?
I move approval.
I second.
Moved and seconded.
You guys are very fast. One moment. Hey, Mr. Santos, how would you like to record your vote?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Perfect. The budget passes there. So now we move on to the actual fiscal year budget for the Retiree Healthcare Program and the OPEB. That's item B. Once again, I'll take a motion for that.
I'll second.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Let's please vote.
Mr. Oakham, how would you like to record your vote? Very good. Thank you. Mr. Green, very good. The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Thank you. We're well on our way of funding ourselves for next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item C, which is the approval of the revised AB 2449 teleconference policy. We have a memo dated May 22nd, 23. Since there is some substantive changes in there, Mr. Rice, I'll be briefly address the board.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kehoe, trustees. Based on experience with AB 2449 teleconferencing during the past 3 months. This item proposes 3 substantive changes to the board's policy to fit our application of this new law to our needs and our unique governance practices. The first change is that AB 2449 requires that those who are teleconferencing to attend by both audio and video. Now, that's the law. That's what the statute provides. However, what is the application of that? And we've seen in some of our board meetings recently where this has resulted in inconvenience to trustees who are teleconferencing as permitted by the statute because of illness. And so in working with Fiduciary Counsel, we've come up with language that clarifies that trustees may need to go off camera or mute themselves momentarily to avoid disruption to the meeting. And it's not in the policy, but obviously also personal inconvenience. But in terms of in this interpretation of the statute, the key point is that there could be disruption to the meeting. Trustees are still going to be required to be on camera when they speak and also when they vote. The second 2 changes, the second and third changes are based on LACERA's unique governance structure for committee meetings, where all of our committee meetings are also noticed as board meetings, although the non-committee trustees can't make a motion, they can't vote, they're just there to participate in discussion. Because although they are noticed board meetings, there is not an ability for the board to take action. Fiduciary Counsel and I were comfortable in adding 2 amendments to the policy to clarify that a quorum of board trustees is not required for board trustees to teleconference into committee meetings. There still needs to be a physical quorum of committee members, but non-committee members can teleconference in, even if there's not a quorum of the board as a whole. And the reason is because there's no board action taking place and no substantive board participation. It's simply discussion. The third change also relates to committees, and it is driven by the fact that if we counted against the limit, the teleconference limit, all of the committee meetings that non-committee members attend, their board meeting limit would be maxed out very quickly. And in fact, under the current interpretation, we actually already have 1 member of this board who was required to teleconference for caregiving responsibility, who's already exhausted but through 1 day of participating in both committee meetings and a board meeting by teleconference. They've lost their ability to participate in further teleconference. That doesn't seem like a reasonable interpretation, given the fact that when a person is in that situation as a non-committee member attending committee meetings because they're interested and want to be informed and engage in the discussion, that they should lose the right to have other teleconferencing for board meetings, regular board meetings, the rest of the year. So this third amendment clarifies that we are going to have the same committee limit apply to committee members and non-committee members that are attending. So that puts committee members and non-committee members in the same situation with respect to the amount of teleconferencing that they can do into those committee members, and makes our interpretation of the law more fair with respect to all of our trustees who want to participate in committee meetings. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. I have a few in the queue. So Mr. Knox.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I had reached out to you a little while back because I wanted to understand if I'm not on the insurance benefits committee and I'm at my house and I just wanted to dial in and listen, or just, via the Zoom, I would still have to apply, or the notification requirements and all those things would still apply to me, correct?
Yes, there still has to be just cause or emergency circumstances in order to teleconference into a committee as a non-committee member.
That still seems odd to me. So that hasn't changed in.
That hasn't changed, and there's nothing we can do about that. It is still a noticed board meeting. We were able to find room for flexibility on the quorum requirement and on the limit, but not on kind of the threshold, which is the just cause or emergency circumstances that allows teleconferencing in the first place.
Okay. And then my only other comment was on page 5 of 6 under 5.5, that last paragraph in blue on the updated policy. I've read that a few times and I have a hard time digesting that paragraph. I don't know if you could break that up a little differently or better. Maybe I'm the only one. But I found that really challenging to understand what was going on. Thank you.
Let me clarify something. Steve, if you're not on the audit committee and you're not going to the meeting and you zoom in on the meeting, that counts as one. I mean, you got to get permission.
You have to have just cause or emergency circumstances.
So any meeting that, even if you're not a member and you get 2 of those and then you can't do any more, is that correct?
That's correct. And thank you, Trustee Oakham, for this question, because just to be more specific. So for this board, what this will mean is that you will be able to teleconference into 2 board meetings every year, 2 IBLC meetings, 2 OOC meetings, 2 JOG-C meetings, and 2 audit committee meetings, even if you're not a member of those committees.
You get 2 of each one of those.
Correct, and there'll be a separate limit for each one.
But again, the salient point is if you're not a member.
If you're not a member, if
you
you're
are
a
then
member,
you're still limited to 2.
yeah, you, as a committee member, you already have the 2
Right.
because you're a committee
Right.
member, and this will give non-committee members a separate 2 meeting limit for those committees.
I think we'll need a flow chart for this.
Yeah,
Decision-making.
again, this is part of the drafting issues with this statute.
Mr. Santos, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I agree with all the changes. Actually about time, but shouldn't this have gone through the JOGC committee?
This originally came to the 2 boards separately, even though it's been adopted by both boards. And I'm not sure when the next JOG-C meeting is, but we're proposing that this policy be effective immediately and in fact be retroactive so that for this entire year, all trustees will have the benefit of this change.
As I said, I'm supportive of this today, but I think, and I'm concerned that items come up and they are not taken properly through their respective committees. We had a previous incident with that, and we need to follow our own rules. And you, as a general counsel, are required to make sure that we follow the rules. So it seems to me that it should have been gone through the JOGC. It applies to both boards, but nevertheless, it's already here. I am supportive of it, but I just want to remind you that any item that fits in within the appropriate committee, it should be routed to the appropriate committee so it can be discussed and take action and make a recommendation to this board for action.
Mr. Rice, is this a joint policy or is this an individual policy of each board?
This is a policy that was separately adopted by each board. And we didn't characterize it as a joint policy because we didn't know whether what happened with the original teleconference policy, which would happen here, which is that each board would make their own amendments. And so the discussion that occurred last fall with respect to this policy was just take it to the boards. And so that's what we did originally. And we follow that same pattern here.
So in theory, each board can adopt different policies or not? Because
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, understood. Is that ultimately why are we going to, because because I hear what Mr. Santos just says, but I just want to make sure that we're giving you clear direction. So
Yeah.
These are individual policies adopted by individual boards, and the boards could put its own restrictions on it, right?
Yes, I will say that I think because there are two joint board committees, and also because there are joint board meetings to which the rules apply, that it is there's a strong governance interest that the policies of the two boards be aligned. And that's what happened with the original teleconference policy. They started out different and then they became aligned.
Okay, so that if there's no objection from anybody on the board, for future direction on this will be any changes to go through the JOG-C, assuming that the Board of Investments doesn't have an objection as well.
That's fine. I appreciate.
Does anybody have any concerns about this being a joint board policy that's going to be pushed through JOG-C in the future? I know today we're talking about adopting what we have in front of us, but I don't hear any objections or any concerns. So let's give that direction to staff. Any questions from staff to them?
No, we'll follow that process in the future, and I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Santos's.
Ms. Gray.
I just have a very brief question. I'm understanding that for each committee, you have two teleconference exclusions or abilities. But what if you just don't, in the past, if you just don't attend, does staff apply your non-attendance to the teleconference policy?
No.
Or is it only if you want to zoom in and hear and hear what's going on?
No, if you're absent, your teleconference limit is not reduced. The limit only applies to when you actually teleconference.
Thank you.
I have Mr. Robbins.
Steve, I think I'm still a little confused about the differences between not attending a meeting when you're not a committee member and attending a meeting when you're not a committee member. We get 2 passes for board meetings. We can exercise the option to telecommute, right?
Correct.
If we are a member of a committee, the same thing applies.
Correct.
If we're not a member of the committee and we just want to dial in and monitor what's going on, if we don't, I mean, what's the criteria for doing it or not doing it?
The governance history, and this goes back a long time at LACERA, but in order to give all trustees, even non-committee member trustees, an opportunity to participate in committee meetings, in the discussion at committee meetings, all committee meetings are noticed as meetings of the committee and meetings of the board. That's why we have to address this issue for non-committee members, because they can attend committee meetings as just board members.
Okay, so now I'm confused. So when you're a full board, when you're not on the committee but you're attending, it counts as a board meeting.
Yes, but we've cured that with these amendments by creating a separate limit for non-committee board members to attend each committee.
Got it. So that then has a separate 2.
Yes, and that means there's
and just to clarify for everybody can always attend and just watch the live stream. That doesn't count towards anything whatsoever. If you're not going to provide any comments and you just want to watch I think it's on YouTube, right? The live stream. LACERA.com, sorry. Then that doesn't count.
That's right. But that would not be through Zoom. That would be through live stream.
Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mr. Burns.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I think the easiest way to understand this change is that all trustees will have the same limit for all committees, and in calculating the limit, there's going to be no difference.
Perfect. Mr. Burns.
This is a comedy routine. It's fantastic. I just want to ask a related question.
Yes.
Because this is, they've given us something complicated. I'm fine with what's proposed here. I'll support it. But if we know this is also designed for emergencies. If we just want to go old school, is that policy for actually formally noticing where we're going to be still available? And is that easy? Because this is usable, but not super user friendly. And I'm just wondering whether that policy is still available and if you could walk through what that is.
Yes. So the policy that the board adopted a few years ago for governing the use of just the traditional method where you open your home or your hotel room or wherever you happen to be to the public. It has to be ADA compliant. The address has to be stated on the agenda. That is still available. And in fact, during the past 3 months since this legislation has been utilized by LACERA, we have had a number of trustees who've chosen to go that route on both boards, and I think also the JOGC, if I'm not mistaken. But we've had a number of situations where the traditional method has been utilized because of the complexities of this and because people don't want to use it, their teleconference limit.
Got it. And that doesn't apply towards the limit.
That does not apply towards the limit.
Good question. Okay. Any additional questions on this policy change? I see none. Let's go ahead. 1 second before we make a motion and vote. There was a clarification question from Mr. Knox. How do we want to handle that? Because I'm concerned about approving the policy with some concerns still.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just trying to digest that paragraph. If I had a ready solution, I would propose it as an amendment, but I don't know if other people found that paragraph easy to digest. I'm fine approving it as is. Maybe it's just a tax collector thing.
Can we do this? Because I think there are some people that are potentially impacted by this policy. So can we move to adopt the policy, direct staff to then bring it back with any minor revisions, and we could just throw that on the consent calendar?
Yes, that's fine. I will share with the board that Fiduciary Counsel and I had more emails and telephone conferences about this issue than you might think would have been necessary. But that's because of the way the statute is written. And we do have to follow the law, but we also have to fit it within. We have to fit this square peg into the round hole of our governance process. And we've done that, but that's required some gymnastics with the language. But I take your comments. I take Trustee Knox's comments to heart, and I appreciate the approach that you outlined, Chair Keogh. And we will, if it's approved by both boards, go back and look at the language and tweak it as necessary to make sure that it's crystal clear.
Perfect.
Or maybe as you even half joked about a flow chart, maybe the language is fine and a flow chart helps eliminate or address some of the questions that came up today in the confusion.
Yeah. I do think that would be helpful. Okay, so we'll take that as the motion from Mr. Knox, and then if we can have a second.
Second. I will second. May I have a comment?
Okay.
Mr. Chair? I'm sure you, I know Mr. Klusner probably reviewed that, but did you review the legislative history of this statute?
Yes.
Okay, and it doesn't help?
No.
Regarding interpretation? Okay.
No, there isn't a lot of legislative history here. You may recall that there were actually a number of competing bills that were trying to extend the COVID teleconferencing, and this was the bill that ultimately prevailed. But there is not a lot of legislative history. The committee reports and so forth are not helpful here.
Thank you. Okay, let's please vote.
Ms. Gray, how would you like to record your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
I know that.
Those two, item D, which is the application of Jill Torres for reinstatement. I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Moved and seconded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do a roll call. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein?
Aye.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez?
I'm not staying.
Okay, Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
And Chair Kehoe?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present, with one abstention.
Okay, that brings us to item E, which is our invoices. We need a motion.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein?
Aye.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mr. Oakham?
Aye.
Chair Kehoe?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Okay, that brings us now to our reports. Item A is an information only item, but I know that we have Mr. Klausner here. We have a memo that was dated May 31st, 23. And I will open it up if there's any questions from the memo that we all had. The report out on our meetings. I see none. Thank you, Mr. Klausner, for being present with us. So then item B through E are all information only items. So I'll open those up too for any questions or comments from anyone. Seeing none, that brings us to item 12, which is our staff review.
Yes, staff will provide an educational session regarding PEPRA SCDs and compensation, earnable and pensionable compensation to the board, as well as provide to the unions.
Perfect. Anything else that we missed? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 13, which is the item for future agendas. Do we have any requests for any future agenda items from any board members? I see none. We'll go ahead and do the good of the order.
Mr. Knox?
Good morning, everyone. Nice seeing a almost full board here today. I was just going to mention that a few months ago, you were talking about, Mr. Kryman, the virtual appointments and scheduling those. So just for the heck of it, I scheduled one since they take a couple of months to do. And I had it earlier this week and it was fantastic. The counselor Percy was great. You know, you don't feel rushed, which was nice. A good conversation, looking at various options, checking boxes to make sure you have various things scanned and uploaded into the system, which I found to be really helpful. There were a couple of hiccups and some other minor suggestions that I had. You know, maybe I'll just bring those up at the OOP, but I wanted to commend the team for what was really a great process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins.
Just a quick story. I had an opportunity a couple weeks ago to go out to the company in Irvine that makes heart valves. And this was a company that made the heart valve that they put inside my heart. And they asked me to go out there, and once a month they do a thing where they bring in someone who was alive because of the benefit of something that they manufacture there. And they asked me if I participate in this, and they do it with their employees. The company has about 3,500 employees on a 40-acre facility off of MacArthur, just north of the 405 freeway. And so I sat in this amphitheater, and there were about 400 employees setting up, all listening to the Q&A with the head of marketing and me talking about my story with my heart problem. Before I had a chance to do this, I got to go into the clean room where they actually make the heart valves. And basically, everybody in there, we couldn't go inside because we just looked through a big glass window, and there's rows of technicians that are sitting in there all in, gowned out, looking into telescopes while they're making heart valves by hand. The heart valve that they put in me has 1,000 hand sutures in it. And these people in there do it by hand. They did something that I thought was really cool. Because all of these valves have numbers on them, they brought in the 3 women that actually made my valve.
Oh, wow.
And all 3 of them were Vietnamese Americans. Their families had come here in the mid-70s when the country fell. and immigrated to the United States. And they all wanted their picture taken with me, individually and collectively. It was very cool. I mean, we're talking some pretty, I look like I'm 7'6", standing next to him, tall as him, standing next to him. But they train out there. Back up just a second. When they initially started doing these, making these valves out there, they went to the garment district out in Orange County and recruited people, mostly women, to make these valves because they're all hand sewn. It takes about 10 hours to make a valve. And they normally have a couple of different people that'll work on the same valve. I should have brought it in. They gave me a glass cylinder thing, and inside of it is a valve, the exact same valve they put in my aorta. So I just had to tell the story because it was very cool. But they said they've got 3rd generation Vietnamese working for this company, and it's one of the biggest heart valve manufacturers in the world. And everything is done right there, and then they ship their products all over the world. So it was a pretty impressive work location as well. They feed all their employees breakfast and lunch, $5 a meal, subsidized by the company. Benefits and stuff, I understand, are quite nice. And Will Pryor told me about one of his firefighters who had just resigned from the department because he was an engineer out at this company, and they called him back and made him an offer he just could not refuse, pay-wise. So, but anyway, it's kind of a cool story. So I have a conversation piece over dinner sometime and say, this is what they stuck down inside my aorta. So
Les, how did they test that valve to make sure it works properly? Any idea?
well, I just had echocardiogram number 3 yesterday post-op. So
I mean, before they don't test it before they put it in.
that I don't know. I mean, they have a 99+% success rate when they make these, not having any malfunctions or anything. They're looking for leaks when they go in. So, but I don't know if they did anything before they let me go in the hospital. That's possible.
That's cool. Very cool.
Tony Stark.
Mr. Harris?
Can't top that.
I know. Mr. Bernstein?
Les, it's so good to see you back in good color and good spirits. You honestly gave us quite a concern, and we're all really grateful to have you back. And I just want to acknowledge, because I think I probably be speaking for everyone, but since I have specifically been quite critical of the budgeting process in past years, I just want to acknowledge what a pleasure and what a positive conclusion it was, that the information was presented in a thoughtful way, in a way that we could digest, ask questions, give input. And when it came down to it, it could have practically been on consent today. So to you specifically, Santos, but really to every person on staff involved, that's what a good process looks like, in my opinion. And it is noticed and appreciated.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Santos?
Yes, thank you. You know, when I first got elected to the Board of Investments, a lot of the different groups that supported me demanded that I be concerned regarding a private equity program, and perhaps we should no longer participate in the private equity program. They even brought in a consultant to talk to me about how terrible private equity is for a pension fund like ours. I went to school. I went to Wharton School, took a class in private equity, and came out of that school convinced that private equity was good strategy for us. Carl Pierce, on the other hand, as was reported, I believe yesterday or the day before, decided to go to a private equity moratorium, and they concluded that they had lost $18 billion CalPERS lost because they decided not to invest in private equity. We, LACERA, in 2008, we panicked on the Board of Investments, including the CIO at the time, and we also implemented a moratorium in private equity. Luckily for us, we went back into private equity around 2010, but we lost substantially because we panicked. And our private equity program has delivered to us year in and year out. Mr. Torres is here, you can correct me. The last number that I looked at was 16%. I think the last number was anywhere from 16% to 22%. And with regards to the emerging manager program, we consistently get 21% or thereabouts. And the co-investing secondary program, I know we had a report the previous year, it was 64%. I don't remember what we had last year, but it was a substantial return. So it is important for us to understand that a lot of times, a lot of people in the industry or outside the industry, a lot of constituents put a lot of pressure on us because they think they know better. And my message here is that we have to obviously educate ourselves. We need to make sure that we follow our conviction. It is our money. We are here to make money and provide the benefits to our members. So it is critical that we continue to be independent and not listen to some of these folks that really do not know what they're talking about when they're trying to tell us. The latest I've seen in the legislature is that they have legislation going through the process of Washington in Sacramento, where prohibits CalPERS and CalSTRS from invested in fossil fuel. That is horrendous when the legislature is trying to tell us how to do our jobs, where to invest, and is a very dangerous precedent setting. Luckily, that legislation does not apply to the 1937 counties, but it's something that we need to be vigilant to make sure that they do not enact any laws that preclude us from doing what we're supposed to be doing. And the other thing I got, Mr. Robbins, is the congratulations. You're full of energy. And I just hope, Mr. Perez, that we are investors in that company that produced the valve, because most likely we will be making a lot of money on that. Thank you.
Ms. Gray?
I cannot add anything to all the comments that were made. Mr. Santos, thank you so much for keeping us informed. My takeaway is that no matter which board you're on, you should remain educated, and it's up to us to be educated. We have a fiduciary duty to be educated, both in administration and investments, so that we understand what we do for LACERA and its members. I thank Mr. Bernstein for complimenting staff on their work on the budget. It was very easy to understand. And after all these years, I thank you all for making it that way, because before I had to head scratch all the way through the budget and try to understand it. But now it's very understandable. And the other thing is, Mr. Robbins, I really am happy to see you. Really, really happy to see you. And I think you already know that. You're here.
That company, by the way, is Edwards Life Science. So that's the name of it. And they're one of the biggest manufacturers in the world of heart valves. That's all they make is heart valves.
I hope we invest in them. And thank you, everyone.
Mr. Green?
Thank you, Bonnie. Yeah, not much to add. I agree with Mr. Santos. We have a constant threat from legislating locally at the state level and also federally, which was apparent when we went to the NC-PERS in January, which is, that's a pickle fork approach to what we know. I just got back from NC-PERS with a couple other trustees, and it was educational, though it was a short trip. So, like Miss Gray had said, but yeah, Les, I'm glad you're still working for LACERA, as they say. So thanks for sharing that personal story. That's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Sanchez?
I'll just briefly state I hate being late to these meetings, but today my 4-year-old had a culmination at TK, so I'm not missing that. No offense to everybody here. Thank you for your work. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I needed to be there. So thank you.
Mr. Oakham?
I think, Mr. Santos, we have to thank Mr. Grable for the great job. I think that whole community is doing their investments to keeping us where we are, and maybe you see he's not here today. Maybe you convey that for me. Mr. Robbins, any more stories? No more stories? I love that story. That was. Why don't you should have brought the pictures in. We could have put it up on the board. But besides that, it's really, it's nice to see this board working together as much as it is, and I appreciate that. I just met a couple of new members, and it seems great. And Bonnie, thank you for what you do. She can't take better care of us than she does, and she's just wonderful at it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Does Bonnie work for all of you? I thought she only worked.
Mr. Crichton?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Trustee Knox for your feedback, and I look forward to your notes so that we can improve the service to our members. Mr. Bernstein, I think that the board and you in particular deserve a lot of credit in terms of the quality of the budget, because that was something that you wanted and you championed, quite frankly, from the very first day that I think that we actually had a meeting prior to my arrival here. And so I want to thank my staff, quite frankly, Laura and Caitlin and Mr. Lugo have done a really good job trying to make the process a little easier, more understandable, better charts. And we're hopeful that we're going to be able to even do much better than that once we get our new budget system in place. We're still working with the old one. And so I appreciate the shout out and the recognition of the job well done from my staff. And Mr. Sanchez, no need to apologize, quite frankly, because you had to take care of your TK. My 2 girls just graduated from college, and I have my youngest is actually going to attend UC Santa Cruz this upcoming fall. One of the things that we did do, and I would encourage you to take a lot of pictures. The cake that we got our girls had their TK graduation picture where they were in white with a blue tassel and their actual college regalia. And so it was kind of nice to kind of see the differences, and the years have certainly gone by. And so I do want to encourage you to take those pictures and share a cake one day. I'm hopeful that you'll be able to do that with your children as well. And so I do also want to thank the rest of the trustees and the Board of Investments and the Board of Retirement. I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Santos, in terms of our independence, our ability to meet our obligations to our members. That is of paramount importance to us at all times. That's all we ever think about, quite frankly, is how are we delivering service and how are we going to make those payments. And Mr. Grable is not able to be here because he's actually making a presentation on a panel, making sure that LACERA is front and center on a lot of those particular issues. His team has done a fabulous job. He'll have some news in terms of the DCIO next week at the Board of Investments. And so we've gone through a process with him, and I think he's ready to move forward on the DCIO position. And so it's just, LACERA is actually just quite frankly, it's a wonderful place to work. You get a lot of real good professional satisfaction out of it, personal satisfaction that you're helping someone that's actually devoted their entire career, their entire lives to public service, which is a very noble calling, quite frankly. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to each and every one of you on behalf of my staff and behalf of myself for all the support that you've given to us, and also for approving the budget so that we can pay our bills come July 1. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And Chair Kehoe?
Thank you. 100% agree with the comments on the budget. It's just very refreshing and glad to see the process come to fruition. I'm looking forward to the future system when that's up and running. And I'll just close it out by saying that I agree, Mr. Santos, what you said on that, because at the end of the day, that company that's over there that built that heart valve wouldn't have been able to exist without private equity investments and money coming in from firms like us. So those are those success stories that I love to hear. So tying those two together is just amazing stuff that we're able to be a part of that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and then we will start again on our disability.
Recording stopped.
What is that? The 34.